Star Trek. Picard's controversy about Jean-Luc's mother explained. When Star Trek, Picard boldly went into Captain Jean-Luc Picard's traumatic past. It sparked one of the most controversial storylines in recent Star Trek history. Season 2 of Picard delved deep into the psyche of the legendary Starfleet captain, exploring suppressed childhood memories and family trauma. But it was the tragic depiction of Picard's mother, Yvette, and her heartbreaking fate that stirred confusion, debate, and backlash from longtime fans. Here's why Picard's take on Jean-Luc's mother ignited such strong reactions, and why it's a bold but flawed choice. A reimagined past. In Star Trek, Picard Season 2, the story unfolds across time, with Q manipulating events to force Jean-Luc to confront the repressed memories of his youth. Through a series of flashbacks, viewers witness the relationship between a young Jean-Luc, his loving but mentally ill mother Yvette, and his strict father Maurice. As the narrative unspools, a devastating revelation comes to light. Yvette Picard died by suicide, and young Jean-Luc was the one who inadvertently allowed it to happen. This stark recontextualization of Picard's childhood painted a haunting portrait of trauma and guilt, adding layers of vulnerability to the usually composed and dignified Starfleet hero. However, it also directly contradicted what had been previously established in Star Trek: The Next Generation, creating a continuity clash that fans couldn't ignore. The canon contradiction. The heart of the controversy lies in the contradiction between Picard's revelations and what fans knew from TNG. In the Next Generation Season 1 episode, Where No One Has Gone Before, Jean-Luc experiences a vision of his mother, much older, serving him tea in a dreamlike moment. He fondly refers to her as Maman, and she's depicted as elderly, gentle, and wise. The implication was always that Yvette Picard had lived to old age. Fast forward to Picard Season 2, and suddenly the audience is told that Yvette died when Jean-Luc was still a child, having hanged herself after a period of worsening mental illness. The drastic change in her fate left fans confused. Was that TNG moment now a retcon? A metaphor? A dream? The writers of Picard tried to explain the contradiction by implying that the scene in TNG was a fantasy conjured by Picard's subconscious, not a literal memory. But many viewers found that explanation unconvincing. Mental health representation. Bold but polarizing, one of the aims of Picard Season 2 was to humanize Jean-Luc by revealing the trauma he buried and the real reasons he avoided romantic intimacy throughout his life. By making his mother's mental illness a central theme, the series took a step toward addressing real-world mental health issues, a rarity in Star Trek, which typically depicts a utopian future where such struggles are largely cured or treated. Yvette's depression and psychosis were shown with compassion, not villainy. Her love for Jean-Luc was clear, and her tragedy was portrayed as the result of untreated illness rather than weakness. But many fans took issue with the decision to set such a bleak and tragic storyline in the otherwise hopeful world of Star Trek. Some argue that portraying such a grim fate, a mother taking her own life, and her son bearing the burden for decades, didn't fit with the optimistic tone the franchise traditionally upholds. There was also concern that the storyline inadvertently reinforced damaging stereotypes, that people with mental illness are doomed, dangerous to themselves, or burdens to their families. While Picard aimed for nuance, the execution didn't land for everyone. The weight of guilt. Another controversial aspect was how the show framed young Jean-Luc's role in his mother's death. In one haunting scene, he recalls unlocking a door that allowed her access to the conservatory where she later took her own life. Though he was just a child, Picard presents the adult Jean-Luc grappling with the misplaced guilt of that moment. This added depth to his character, showing how even the strongest minds can carry deep emotional scars. Yet it also felt emotionally manipulative to some fans, as if the writers were manufacturing trauma to retroactively explain Picard's emotional distance and stoicism, despite decades of established character development. A risky narrative choice. To the creators of Picard, Season 2 was about exploring identity, vulnerability, and emotional truth. By confronting his past,